Hi everyone, welcome back to Healthy with Nicole. In today's video, I want to talk about hormones and ulcerative colitis, and more specifically, estrogen and ulcerative colitis. So I've worked with a lot of women, actually more men have had ulcerative colitis and have been my clients, but I have worked with a lot of women who are noticing whether they're, if they're still in their cycling phase, they're noticing that right before their cycle, their ulcerative colitis symptoms, and in fact, any digestive problems, which I think is really interesting, but specifically with ulcerative colitis, they notice that their symptoms are worsened just before their cycle. And so this would be called the luteal phase. And this is the last phase of the cycle where the progesterone levels drop unless you have a fertilized egg and then you become pregnant. But if you don't, your body, understands that there's no egg to support or fertilized egg. And so the progesterone levels rapidly drop. And this is where most women experience PMS. PMS, by the way, was a term coined by Katarina Dalton. And I'll talk more in another video about her work and what she did in researching progesterone. But she was kind of one of the founders of this idea of PMS. And the whole basis of it is that we start to lose our progesterone in that phase of the cycle. So the luteal phase, which I often call the lunatic phase, because that's how women often feel. They're moody, they don't sleep well, they get angry easily, they might be anxious or depressed, and basically they become symptomatic. And a lot of times women will say that their IBS or IBD symptoms get worse around this time. So I did a little research about the estrogen, and it actually turns out that, and I'm looking down at my notes, but there actually has been a study that has shown, and this is specifically with menopausal women using HRT, but they had 100,000 people plus in this study. And what they found was that there was a 74% increase in UC symptoms in women taking HRT as opposed to women not taking it. And I really think this is interesting because they have found that the estrogen is thought to influence gut inflammation. And isn't that what we're all dealing with? Even if you don't have ulcerative colitis, even if you have just IBS or you have some sort of gut issues, you may notice that they're worse right before your period. And so during that luteal phase, we're lower in progesterone, and estrogen will automatically be higher. You're automatically going to be estrogen dominant in this last 2 weeks of your cycle, even if you're not taking HRT. Okay, so the whole point here is that estrogen is influencing your gut. And this study is specifically talking about HRT. However, the women that I have worked with were not on HRT. It was just their natural estrogen in their body that was dominating, and specifically and especially during this luteal phase when there's no progesterone to counteract this. So Dr. Ray Peat has done a ton of work talking about balancing estrogen in your body and really trying to keep it in control, because many people are low in progesterone, which by the way is in men too. So progesterone is the calming hormone, and for a lot of people that are under a lot of stress, if they constantly have adrenaline and high cortisol, it actually blocks the progesterone receptor. And so they're not able to get the benefits of progesterone when they're under a lot of stress. Well, I found that really to be kind of interesting because a lot of the women that I have worked with have previously done a low-carb diet, which we know increases cortisol. And so when your stress hormones are elevated, you're automatically going to have less progesterone. And if you're eating a high-fat diet, you're probably going to have high estrogen, because high-fat diets promote high estrogen as well as insulin resistance. And so this all works together to basically put women and men in a situation where they have too much estrogen because they don't have progesterone to oppose it and keep it in control. In addition to that, the liver has the majority of the job of basically deactivating the estrogen and helping to clear it from the body. So if your liver's not functioning very well, then it may not be clearing the estrogen up from your body enough. And don't forget that we come into contact with all kinds of chemicals that mimic estrogen and act like estrogen in your body. And so you can test your blood, you can do urine tests, but they're not super accurate because estrogen a lot of times gets built up in the tissues of the body. And so there's no way to test that. So you might see it in the blood. More likely you'll see it in the blood if you're taking progesterone, which pushes it out of the tissues and into the blood. You might see it on a urine test, or you might just know if you're taking the pill, birth control pill, or if you're taking estrogen HRT, you might see an increase or worsening in your symptoms, whether it's IBS, IBD, ulcerative colitis, or other. I will say that this study said it didn't affect Crohn's. But we're looking at all the inflammation in the body. So something to think about, and what you can do is don't do a low carb diet because you're setting yourself up for high stress hormones, high fat, which both promote estrogen and low progesterone. So that could worsen it. You can also work on getting your estrogen levels in check. So not using things that have estrogenic substances like skincare products with estrogenic chemicals, essential oils. You can also avoid certain herbs that are estrogenic that a lot of women take. And then also plastics, BPAs, the toxic chemicals that are in our food and water, those a lot of times are estrogenic. So there's actually a lot you can do. And for women that are going through perimenopause, I actually created a guide for you. It's called the Perimenopause Playbook. And it's all about how to get your hormones back into balance. And so if you have an inflammatory bowel disease or another situation where you have inflammation in the gut and you're noticing that in those last 2 weeks before your cycle, things get worse, then you're definitely going to want to pay attention to these things that throw off your estrogen and progesterone balance. So I'm going to put the link to this study in the notes below. You can take a peek at it and see what you think, but I'd love to hear your comments. If you're a female watching this video, and you've experienced this, comment about it down below because I'd love to hear about it. And if you're a male watching this and you know that you have a high estrogen or you have a female with it, I'd love to hear your experience with that as well. So the link below is going to be to my website and to the Perimenopause Playbook. And of course, there's also my free guides, which you can find at the same website, all for helping you heal your gut. I hope you liked that video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.